let's take a look at this term, developmentally appropriate practices. I'm sure that many of you, if you've been around the block for a little while, you've heard the term developmentally appropriate practices. So let me tell you what it actually means. Well, no, let me back up a little bit and tell you what people think it means. Think for a moment. What do you think developmentally appropriate practices means? And some people just call it DAP or DAP. Oftentimes what I get is hands-on. Hands-on means developmentally appropriate, and that is not true. Developmentally appropriate practices means three things. The first thing is you have to know the child very, very well. And when we do whole group to whole group all day long, even if you put a brain break in there, if you do whole group to whole group, you can't know a child intimately. You can't. You can't know what excites them, what makes them incredible human beings, what are the things they think about, who do they enjoy engaging with, what types of experiences do they like to do with their friends, getting inside their thinking process and know where they are developmentally, physically, where are they at, emotionally, where are they at, and we have to understand them intimately, right? The second thing is you have to know child development. And most of us did not get that in college, unfortunately. And if you have been, let's say you've been a kindergarten teacher and you've been working in the public school system for, let's say, 15, 20 years, what I'm understanding is a lot of the professional development that's offered to the schools, right, in kindergarten, let's say through a fifth grade school, is really geared to older children. And what teachers often have shared with us is that they're told just tweak it for kindergarten. And they're like, well, it's not even anything that I can use in a kindergarten classroom. And so a lot of kindergarten teachers haven't had training on early childhood development or, just child development, the progressions of how children grow, how they learn, and how they develop. And so I'll give you an example of this. When a child comes to school in kindergarten, oftentimes they hold their pen like this or their marker or whatever you have them write. They write in all kinds of crazy ways because they haven't had a whole lot of experience, first off, with writing tools, but also their fine motor skills are still developing. So teachers who have had opportunities to do stuff like Play-Doh and Legos and that kind of thing will say, oh, children need to develop their fine motor skills, right? Let me back up a little bit. Sometimes what we do when a child has a difficult time understanding grip, we get those little pencil things to get them to grip, and then we teach them how to hold, and we correct it. So we give them more practice doing this, and then we have an expectation they're going to write more in order for them to get this, right? Okay, so we do all of that. And again, I'm going to go back to some teachers then do some fine motor activities because they might see that children need these skills developed, these muscles developed. And have you ever really watched children with their hands? I have seen children, and I saw this recently in a classroom. They were like, their hands are look like they weighed 10 pounds because they're still developing these skills. The other thing is that many folks don't know that this skill, this here, has to develop before this does. And so what is this? Well, this is painting. This is painting. How many of us are painting in the classroom? And so we have to develop these wrist skills, these wrist muscles, and then we develop these muscles. That's kind of the order, the progressions of learning. And so it's just like the example that I always like to give, it's like a baby. If we've got a baby who's now just beginning to crawl, we know that that's a progression, crawling, then pulling themselves up, then balancing, standing, and then taking the first step, right? We know that. If a child started crawling today and then we held the baby up and expected them to stand and then the baby fell, is that the baby's fault that he's not able to stand and balance, or is that our fault for not understanding that that's not the progression? They don't go from crawling to standing right away and then walking. So there's a big gaping hole there in understanding those progressions. So that's the second thing. Okay. And all areas of development have progressions. And that's what the Teaching Strategies Gold tool helps teachers gain an understanding of, because it's built on that progression model. The third thing is that we've got to spend more time knowing who our parents are, the parents of the children in our classroom, their culture. And I don't mean ethnicity. Ethnicity is a part of their culture, but who they are and their relationships with their children, to come from a place of a partnership and being respectfully responsive to their different perspectives and their ideas. And how do we help them feel as inclusive members of this classroom community? That's a very important part of developmentally appropriate practices. So those are the three pieces: know the child, know the stages and progressions of learning, growth, and development, and stay connected and be culturally responsive to each of the families of the children in your classroom.